a name that appeared in the conversation of my parents, and that is how I became familiar with the name and had painted a mental portrait of a legendary teacher who would take classes on Sundays after getting tea and lunch for the students. It was one fine afternoon, sometime in the 1966 or 67, a few months after my first memory of the name remains. I happened to see this legendary professor, person as he was, in the premises of Chengalpet Medical College. He used to be taking classes at the Chengalpet Medical College for the students of condensed MBBS, and since my mother was one of them, I had accompanied my father a day to pick my mother, and my curiosity kindled. I asked her, where is that Nanjunda Rao? And that is when Dr. Snehalata, the professor of pathology, I think then she was an assistant professor at Chengalpet, she would point to that gentleman standing at a distance in white and say, there he is, that is the professor. A few hours later, I was absolutely surprised when that professor of a very high stature, as I had imagined, would come to the room of the then Dean of Chengalpet Medical College, Dr. R, yet another professor of pathology, and then play with me with chocolates. That compounded my joy of meeting the legendary person. And that was the first time I heard that word, good, as he used to say it. Some of you might remember the way he used to pronounce the word good. Subsequently, a little before I joined the annals and portals of Madras Medical College, probably not knowing that I would be getting into Madras Medical College at that point of time, it was once again a kind of a pleasant and unpleasant meeting that I had with Professor R. My mother had developed a kind of a swelling, a thyroid swelling, and we had gone to the then General Hospital, what is being called the RGGH now. Professor Madanagopal had suggested surgery, and Professor Sarat Chandra said, come on, I would do the surgery tomorrow, when Professor R&R and NR would counter saying no surgery is required. I still remember vividly sitting in that civil surgeon's room, not knowing what thyroid surgery was, but still being part of the conversation because the reference was quite often to me saying that I would be put into trouble if surgery was done on my mother. And the kind of a queer situation, I still remember Professor R&R kind of ushering me out of that room saying, don't worry, everything will be fine. That is when I realized the dimensions of what a professor he was. Subsequently, when I joined the Madras Medical College, occasions were many to meet this person. And it's once again a little paradoxical that when I joined the Madras Medical College, I did not meet him As a student, I did not meet him for the first time in his room or in the classroom, but then met him in his residence in my lab. From then on, it was the Guru who guided and guided and guided, not only in the technicalities of the subject of general surgery, but in the art of living as a human being. Activities were many, as Dr. Muthulakshmi pointed out. Professor R.R's activities were many. It is this legendary residence in which I met him. Friends, I've deliberately given a slightly oldish looking, not a very clear picture of the residence in which he lived, the old Sashi Vilas. It is not the pixel quality of the picture that matters, but what has ingrained in the memory that he inculcated. It was in one of the rooms of Sashi Vilas that he used to sit, see patients, and sometimes chat with students like us, buying us tea or coffee, and then narrating several old stories. This is the Sashi Vilas where we discussed All India Sai Samaj, where we discussed Service Brigade, where we discussed the medical camps of the Lions Club. This is also the place where we discussed many, many things, including the medical relief activities of Kudumiyandi. Those were the days of those white elephants, as we call them, those huge white vehicles which were given to the medical colleges under the leadership of the then Union Minister for Health, Sri Raj Narayan. And those white elephants were the vehicles in which Professor R would take us to the habitations near Nemili, habitations on the ECR. Most of us know the ECR today, but those were the days when ECR was not that very negotiable. And every Sunday was spent at places like Kudumiyandi, and that is where community health care could really be understood and realized. I have reasons to project the picture of Sashi Vilas today, not only to show the association of Professor R with that residence in which he lived, but also to remind the audience this afternoon of the lineage to which Professor R, Ashok Nanjunda Rao, and all those members of the family belonged. Many of you might wonder as to why this house is called Sashi Vilas. There are very many theories which are told about, which Ashok will be familiar with. But the most plausible and the most fitting reason for this house to have been named Sashi Vilas was because Professor R.R's grandfather, yet another Nanjunda Rao by name, decided to call this the Sashi Vilas after Shashi Bhushan Chakravarti, who later became Swami Ramakrishnananda, starting the Chennai Ramakrishna Math. In fact, on a personal note, pardon me for deviating a little from the Oration material. On a personal note, I am doubly blessed and feel doubly blessed for it was part of the providence that I had to speak on Swami Ramakrishnanand, Shashi Bhushan Maharaj, yesterday in the premises of the Ramakrishna Mutt. This is the house for those of you who would cherish the memories that great people have held for us. This was the house in which a 19-year-old Sarojini Agornath Chattopadhyay married a much elder Govindaraju Naidu to become Dr. Sarojini Naidu later on. This was the house in which people like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandrapal, P.V.S. Iyer, Mahakavi Subramanya Bharatiyar, Veeresalingam Bhaktulu, and several of them, including Swami Vivekananda, stayed for many days and many months. This was the house from which Subramanya Bharati was sent to Pondicherry by the stroke of action of the senior Nanjunda Rao. As I think today of health and wellness on their way forward, I cannot avoid but think of all these that have contributed much to what we call as wellness. Just a reminder of all that, that is the senior Nanjunda Rao, Dr. M.C. Nanjunda Rao, who was also called the Mailapur Dada. Swami Vivekananda. And just an inkling to say, all those service activities and medical relief wing activities, the All India Sai Samaj activities, all that came down to Professor R as part of the great lineage to which he belonged. That's an old picture. Some of you could recognize Swami Vivekananda sitting there with a staff in the center, and that circled face belongs to Dr. M.C. Nanjunda Rao, the maternal grandfather of Professor Ramachandra Nanjunda Rao. Thank you very much once again, the members of the Professor R Endowment Trust, all the members and officials of the university, and the members of the family to have made me a part of this legendary name this afternoon. I repeat, I'm overwhelmed, I'm elated, I'm honored. Health and wellness, the way forward. Some of you might be wondering as to what is there in this topic. Everything is known about health, everything is known about wellness. I start with a question. Do we know anything about health? Do we really know anything about wellness? By the WHO definition, health is complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. This definition of WHO has stuck for several decades now, and it might be a little surprising to note when this particular definition was formulated way back in the 1950s, this was a revolutionary definition. This was called a revolutionary definition of health because nobody thought of mental and social well-being as part of health. Usually, for many of us, health is seen as a state of normal functioning. Normal functioning. In this part of the globe, we have the custom of asking people, "Enna saukyama? Eppadi irukka? Edho irukka?" You know, the answer will be as depressive as a voice emanating from any mental asylum. We think the state of normal functioning, day-to-day functioning, which may from time to time be interrupted by disorders and diseases, and that is what is called health. Added to that, the common concept of health is that it is a state of structural, functional, mental integrity, ability to perform tasks. When I say valued tasks, it means what the individual values. Tasks related to the family, tasks related to the office, tasks related to compulsion, things which have to be done. And a slightly better thinking of health has been ability to cope with conditions of physical, biological, and social stress. Now let's see what wellness is. Again, a very, very non-specific, non-definitive definition. Most of our definitions are very non-definitive. A state of being in good health. But there is one small element which follows the comma as an active pursuit. When I say I'm healthy, I don't have to pursue health. But when I say I'm well, I'm being well, I would have to pursue health. Wellness is usually seen as an active pursuit of health with focused intentions, choices, and actions towards the goal of maintaining wellness. In other words, it is usually said, health is a medical responsibility. Wellness is an individual responsibility. If something goes wrong with the health of the community, the medical world can be blamed. If SARS-CoV-2 would suddenly appear, the medical world can be blamed for not being prepared to attack SARS-CoV-2. But pursuit of wellness is not such. It is the individual who will have to actively pursue wellness. Now that is once again a little tricky because everybody can shirk the responsibility and say it is your individual responsibility, and if you're not well, it is not my headache. That is where the balance between health and wellness will have to be thought of with a different approach, and that is primarily the reason I thought. With all those memories and principles that Professor R had put into the minds of people like us, we can rethink on what we can contribute towards the maintenance of health and wellness of not one individual, but everybody together. Wellness is a self-responsibility. As I told you, it is not a medical responsibility, but it is a self-responsibility that focuses on optimal health and wellness. It has to be proactive and aim at prevention and healthy lifestyle, and has to involve holistic health. Not find differences between drugs and formulations, but then try and unify the goodness of all that can be achieved. Wellness, of course, has several components, as health has components. Health has physical, mental, social components by the global standards. Wellness has several components. I would add two more components to these very commonly narrated 6 components. These 6 components are regular ones: physical, mental, social, emotional, environmental, spiritual. I would add intellectual component of wellness and professional component of wellness. 2 components of wellness which matter when humankind lives in the community. Before we proceed further, let me put these questions. These questions linger around many of us, and I do find a lot of non-medical members of the audience. These are regular questions that every representative of the human community will have. காலப்போக்கில் நோய்கள் குறையுமா? மருத்துவம் அதிகப்பட மருத்துவ மேம்பாடுகள் அதிகப்பட advancements of medicine வர நோய்கள் குறையுமா? Human environmentல organism இல்லாம, pathogen இல்லாம ஒரு காலம் வருமா? Healthcare community, will it be possible to stop all human suffering? These are questions which linger, and you all know the health sector has been discussing diseases. We've been having any number of seminars to discuss diseases, any number of webinars to discuss drugs, formulations, treatments, cures, remedies, whatnot, new inventions, interventional therapy, non-interventional therapy, invasive procedures, non-invasive procedures, all new terms, and probably a shift from one area to another. People from the medical university will know, people who belong to the specialistic areas will know. As newer techniques emerge, some of the specialties are disappearing. As interventional cardiology is becoming more and more, cardiac surgery as a specialty is declining. As surgical oncology increases, poor surgical gastroenterology, which just probably started about 30-35 years ago under Professor Rangabashyam, is slowly dwindling now. So specialties are changing. Several procedures are coming in. Health sector has been discussing all these clinical trials, any number of clinical trials, newer drugs, research protocols, research methodologies, advances, avoidance of certain drugs. You talk about a drug today, 20 years later you say that drug will have to get out of the market because it's obsolete or it is bad or it is harmful. We've been discussing this for years and years. And what have these advancements helped? Health parameters are widened, health indices. When probably Madam Sarda Suresh started her career at Madurai, there were not many health indices as they are today. Today you have several of them, several indices. And for every index which is coming in, you will have to create reports and file all those reports. In general, people appear to be more healthy than what they were 50 years ago. Longevity has increased, and that's one index which is generally taken as a parameter for health. Longevity has increased. I remember when we were students, somebody who was in the retiring age group, what did we comment? Poor old person. And today most of us have crossed that age. And we don't dare commenting on each other as what we commented 30 years ago. Health is being discussed. You see any number of channel discussions which are on health for different age groups, any number of magazines which talk about health, any number of columns on health, and there are health scientists who are suddenly mushrooming here, there, everywhere. Now just have a look at it. 20 years ago, this was someone doing it, right? Today, many of our children are doing these. Skating rings are found all over. You go to the marina, you find skating rings. You take a walk along the ECR or some of the posh roads, you find skating rings here, there, everywhere. And as we look at it, we tend to think that a person who is able to do this must be in a state of extreme fitness to do this. If someone will have to do this on a road like that, எல்லாரும் என்ன நினைப்போம், இந்த பர்டிகுலர் இண்டிவிஜுவல் நல்ல ஃபிட்டா இருந்தால் ஒழிய இந்த மாதிரி ஸ்கேட்டிங் பண்ண முடியாது. அப்ப என்ன ஸ்டேட் ஆஃப் ஃபிட்னஸ் இருக்கணும்? A similar thing, someone to be riding the mobile on a terrain like that and still maintain the balance, not fall down. Again we think, நல்ல பேலன்ஸ் இருக்கணும், நல்ல ஃபிட்னஸ் இருக்கணும், அப்பதான் இதெல்லாம் பண்ண முடியும். And our emphasis on fitness, any number of gymnasia that you find on the roads, every small little road has 3 or 4 gymnasia these days, and everybody goes to the gym. From the 7-year-old to the 70-year-old, everybody goes to the gym. And keep all this information on one side and think of all those reports that we read. People die suddenly inside the gym itself. People are not as healthy as they portray to the outer world. So what if these technologies, what if these advancements, what if these gymnasia, what if these procedures done to contribute to the health of the community? I designed the question a little differently now. Have all these parameters and advancements increased wellness? Forget wellness. Have they at least decreased the number of diseases? Come back to the same questions. Appearance of newer organisms as you see them. Sometime in 400 BC, before the Common Era, was the emergence of the smallpox virus, a virus which jumped from the rodents. It was originally with the rats. From the rats, it jumped into human community, and how long it took for humankind to eradicate the smallpox virus. 3,000 years before the Common Era, men moved in groups from one place to another, and that is when some of the viruses emerged, and one of them became the virus of the rinderpest. I quote rinderpest here because it is yet another virus which is supposed to have been eradicated. Of the human viruses, smallpox is claimed to be eradicated. Of the animal viruses, rinderpest has been claimed to be eradicated. But then you find yellow fever. When did it come? When did the dengue virus start? It was sometime when the Chinese Jin dynasty was reigning. That's about 300 AD, and from then on until the Nimrod's time, the emergence of the dengue virus. And sometime 1,500 years before the Common Era, the dog virus, the rabies virus, that jumped it and evolved better and better for its own survival. And this appearance of newer organisms did not stop. It has still not stopped. 1970s we found Ebola coming in, 1993 was Hunter, 1960s, 2000, SARS, MERS, and we are yet to say goodbye to SARS-CoV-2. We still do not know if it has left us or it is still lingering around. And more and more and more of organisms coming in. This is just a timeline to say what has happened and what would happen. When humankind urbanization, that is when then we5 evolved. I do not know how many of you would remember, I'm sure Dr. Edirajan and Dr. Balasubramanian would remember, there was a time when dengue was usually classified as a brain-bone fever. Dengue kaichala, enna pannom, kaichal varum, kai kaal valikum. It was only a kai kaal vali kaichal. Subsequently, it has now evolved into a fatal illness. Today we are scared at the very utterance of the term dengue. And the most fatal strain developed sometime between 1907 and 1949. Increase in population across the globe, people started migrating into animal territories, plant territories. That resulted in the Ebola spread in 2000s. And even today we can think of it. During the COVID time, there were several questions addressed to this university, to the officials of the university, to the researchers of the university, to those who ran the psychological counseling lines from the universities. There were questions which were coming in, inna pudusa virus varumla. And if we go back and think, most of the newer viruses have evolved and spread from Chinese territories. I'm not here to blame the geopolitical arena at all. Let us forget the geopolitical arena. China still has virgin forests. Encroachment into the forest area, encroachment into the animal area. We want more space for ourselves. We cannot live in a small space. We keep migrating into animal territory. All those viruses which have been animal viruses are now jumping, and then we talk in terms of zoonotic diseases. And who's responsible for this viral jump? Deforestation. Many of the viruses came in when deforestation occurred. Global warming. International travel. 2020, we called the COVID-19 as a pandemic. Records would say the earlier pandemic was in 1919 and 1920, the Spanish flu pandemic. Why was it called a pandemic? It was not hitting all countries of the globe at that time. Some countries were still spared. True to the word pandemic, only COVID was a pandemic because it hit every country. And why did Spanish flu occur in several parts of the world? One singular reason: the troops which participated in the World War moved from one country to another. Nagapattinam was hit in the second and third rounds of Spanish flu. Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu. Why was it hit? Troops which were there in Europe, they came back and they moved to Nagapattinam, and Nagapattinam suffered. It was pockets of travel. But sometime in December 2019, we were all guessing as to what the new disease in China was. We didn't know. Many of us were denying that there was any disease in China at all. January 30th, there is an announcement saying that even in India, one person in Kerala appears to have been affected because traveling all the way back from China. And by March, this university takes a step to conduct an international seminar on what the probabilities of the virus could be, and by March end, we are into the lockdown. What a rapid spread. What was the reason for that spread? International travel. International travel. Everyone was traveling. Lifestyle changes. Now with all these factors which are on the rise, global warming is on the rise, international travel is on the rise, lifestyle changes are on the rise. What are we going to do about wellness? Are we in a position to enhance at least some components of wellness? The reason I said I would add intellectual and professional components of wellness into that big paradigm is this. Today, many of us have a good job, we have a good salary, we are able to support most of our EMIs, we are able to have all facilities which our grandfathers and grandmothers would not have thought of. I don't think Professor R drove an AC car, and his Sashivilas clinic was not, furnished with all those facilities that you can think of today, but just about 30, 40 years. Today we support all facilities. Our pay packet has increased. But please tell me, at the end of every single day, how many of us are professionally satisfied? When we leave for home, are we professionally satisfied? If we are professionally well, there should be an element of satisfaction when we leave the office for home. And we have any number of degrees, any number of diplomas, any number of qualifications. Qualifications which probably would never have been dreamt of by the yesterday generation. How many of us are intellectually satisfied? And where have all these components gone? If we are not professionally satisfied, intellectually satisfied, forget the rest of it, because social, emotional components require inputs from people around also. It is not only our own. There have to be inputs coming from elsewhere. So it is a necessity that we rethink. We cannot shirk our responsibility saying, no, it's all happening. Each one of us will have to now rethink and contribute for the shift from the health paradigm to the wellness paradigm. What is possible by each one of us? Doctors mattumilla, paramedicals mattumilla, every individual. Health paradigm லேந்து wellness paradigm எப்படி மூவ் பண்ண போறோம்? இப்போ மூவ் பண்ணலன்னா இன்னும் 50 வருஷத்துல புது நோய்கள் அதிகப்படும், புதிய பிரச்சனைகள் உருவாகும், புதிய லாக்டவுன்கள் வரும். வேணுமானா லாக்டவுன்ல வர்ச்சுவல் கிளாஸ் நடத்துறேன்னு சொல்லி இன்னும் பெரிய பெரிய திக்கு கண்ணாடி போட்டுக்கலாம். Just to tread onto this term wellness, well is a root word from Proto-Germanic, and that became Vela in English. Earlier times it only meant good fortune. I'm well. Adha ipo, how are you? I'm well. அது கூட கிண்டல் பண்ணுவாங்க. I'm in a well, you're in a well அப்படின்னு. Sometime in the 17th century, wellness is illness go opposite. The modern concept of wellness is an active pursuit in the 1961 வந்தது. And wellness movements have become popular, and today you open your net, wellness போட்டிங்கன்னா any number of sites on wellness which will be contradictory to each other, so that ultimately you land up in a confusion as to whether you're well or not. Wellness is an active pursuit, true, but it is not an active chase. It is not an active chase. When I say it is not an active chase, I mean it. நான் எல்லாமே எனக்கு வெள்ளா இருக்கணும்னு சேஸ் பண்ணா நடக்காது, கிடைக்காது. It is an active pursuit and it is a balance. It is a balance. Balance னு சொல்லும்போது ஈக்குவல் குவான்டிட்டி நினைக்கிறோம், இல்லை. ஈக்குவல் குவான்டிட்டி இருந்தா அது பேலன்ஸ் இல்லை. ஈக்குவல் குவான்டிட்டி இருந்தா சில சமயத்துல பேலன்ஸ் இருக்கும். பட் ஒன்று கொஞ்சம் அதிகமா ஒன்று குறைச்சலா இருந்தாலும் பேலன்ஸ் மெயின்டைன் ஆகும்னு சொன்னா அதுதான் பேலன்ஸ். பேலன்ஸ்னா we always imagine someone holding a balance and ரெண்டு தட்டும் கரெக்டா நிக்கணும். That is not the concept of balance. Wellness has different dimensions. It is not a jigsaw puzzle nor an equal balance. It's a harmonious blend. Coffee குடிக்கிறோம். Sorry, coffee குடிக்க போறாங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். நான் பாட்டு காஃபி சொல்லிட்டேன். People might think என்ன என்ன குடிக்கிறேன். I'm reminded. I'm sorry, organizers. You have the coffee. Coffee equal component னு சொல்லி decoction, milk, sugar ஈக்குவலா போட்டா காஃபி நல்லா இருக்கும். It has to be a harmonious blend. எது எவ்வளவு இருக்கணுமோ அது அவ்வளவுதான். So that kind of balance is what wellness is. Balance of the harmony, not equal quantities or equal grams by weight or measure or volume. Wellness is a self-responsibility. As I told you, it's a slightly tricky thing. When we say it is a self-responsibility, there is a general tendency to shirk and say, no, it is your responsibility, you would have to look after. It still cannot be self-centered. Just because I want myself to be well, I cannot be impinging into the wellness of someone else. Wellness is based on choices, behavior, lifestyle. However, it is a feedback loop. Wellness is being aware. எனக்கு இந்த பிரச்சனை இருக்கா, இந்த பிரச்சனை இருக்கு, but how can I handle it? One small example that all of us know but we've never thought of. இங்க இருக்கிற 90% perfect health இருப்போமா அப்படின்னா forget all the other things that you have. The moment we start wearing this, we are not in perfect health. You know, it can be at whatever age. 6/6 compromise தானே. அப்ப compromise இருக்குன்னு சொன்னாலே it is not perfect health இல்லைல்ல. And why do we think it is not that maintaining textbook values. It is being aware and make the right choice. Make the right choice of how well I can maintain myself. In simpler terms, wellness is not a frozen state, it's a dynamic state, dynamic continuum. We will have to be striving towards wellness every day. இன்னைக்கு நான் ஹெல்த்தியா இருக்கேன், இதே மாதிரி எல்லா நாளும் இருப்பேன் இல்ல. வெல்னஸ்ங்கிறது ஒவ்வொரு நாளும் ஒவ்வொரு நிமிஷமும் we have to be actively doing it. It relates to feeling good. It's inclusive. It does not decrease. You know, வழக்கமா பணத்தை பத்தியும் கல்வியை பத்தியும் ஒன்று சொல்வாங்க. பணம் இருந்ததுன்னா பணம் கொடுக்க கொடுக்க குறையும், கல்வி கொடுக்க கொடுக்க குறையாது, அப்படியே இருக்கும். ஹெல்த்துக்கும் வெல்னஸ்க்கும் இருக்கிற வித்தியாசம் தான். வெல்னஸ் குறையாது. You may still take tablets for some disorder, but you can still remain well. That is the concept of wellness. நான் ஒண்ணுமே இல்லை, நோயே இல்லை, அதுக்காக தான் இது கேட்டேன். நோயே இல்லை இல்லை அப்படின்னு யாரும் சொல்ல முடியாது. என்னைக்கு இது சின்ன வயசோ பெரிய வயசோ போட ஆரம்பிக்கிறோமோ எங்கேயோ ஒரு இடத்துல காம்ப்ரமைஸ் இருக்கு. And wellness as an introspection. And now, what can we do? I understand your question. I understand all of you are frowning your eyebrows. சரி, இதெல்லாம் இருக்கட்டும், என்ன பண்றது? There are only three steps that we need to do. Simple habits. Simple habits. தயவு செஞ்சு எல்லாரும் நினைச்சு பாருங்க. We are living in a city. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to find fault with anyone, but I'm trying to tell you what we are facing and how we can correct ourselves. The time is around 3:30, 3:45. Every working day, sometime between 2 in the afternoon till 4 or maybe 4:30, some roads on this city suddenly become one way. Why? Because there will be an educational institution there and vehicles would, make a beeline and the road would be declared one way, permitting the vehicles to go to the doorstep of the classroom and pick up the children. The same thing happens in the morning. Now many of you would agree with me, there was a time when we said, school எங்க இருக்கு, bus stand லேந்து ஒரு கிலோமீட்டர் நடந்து போயிடலாம். வீடு பார்க்குறீங்களா? ஆமாங்க, ரயில்வே ஸ்டேஷன்லேருந்து ஒரு 1.5 கிலோமீட்டருங்க நடந்து போகலாம். பஸ் ஸ்டாண்ட்லேருந்து ஒரு 2 கிலோமீட்டருங்க நடந்து போகலாம். பக்கத்தில் தான் 10 நிமிஷத்தில் நடந்து போகலாம். We have come to a stage where we think that even our children should not walk, and most parents take their vehicles on a straight glide into the classroom and drop the children there. What has happened to the simple habit? Small little habits. How many of us sit down on the floor? தப்பா எடுக்காதீங்க, 30 வருஷம் முன்னால வரைக்கும் டைனிங் டேபிள்ங்கிறது ஒரு லக்ஸுரி. இன்னைக்கு டைனிங் டேபிள் இஸ் a must. And we have forgotten sitting down on the floor, and then we say, to be well, you have to buy first a yoga mat and then roll it on the floor and practice sitting down on the floor. Do you have to practice to sit down on the floor? What has happened to all those small little habits with which we were born, not only in India, everywhere? Human beings were born with these small little things. We do not even know how to pick something that has fallen down. How many of us bow down or squat down and pick it up? I remember when I was in school, we were always told, if you want to pick up something from the floor, don't bend like that. You kind of squat on your knees so that you don't strain your spine. But do we remember all that today? Because we don't dare picking up anything from the floor at all. And we have any number of advertisements which tell us what has fallen down on the floor of my own house is always unhygienic. It is my house and it is my floor. And there is somebody who is sitting inside that screen and screaming at me saying, don't touch that, it is unhygienic. What have we fallen a prey for? Do we really think that all these corrode into our wellness? Please rebuild those small little habits. Small little habits. I still remember Kudumiyanti Topu, that white elephant would go and then all of us would jump down. And you know where Professor R would first sit and make all of us sit? Never listen. And the Maratadi. He will sit, he will squat down, and all of us will sit around him. And what had he done? Just about 40 years, we've forgotten all that. Small little exercise movements. I remember grandfathers, when they come out of the bathroom after their bath, would hold the towel like that and do this. You know, you don't have to teach them. Today you're teaching all gymnasium exercises. This was a very natural way of doing things. And today you say, just go onto the net and say Anjali Hasta, you want to put that Anjali Hasta, like, you want to see a picture. You find all yoga masters preaching, you do this and hold your, with all the difficulty. If only you did this, there was no difficulty at all. And no individual has to be a superwoman or a superman. I appeal to all the younger people here, younger generation people who have children in the schools. Please do not aspire for your children to be supermen and superwomen. No. If everyone is going to be a superwoman and a superman, the world will become so competitive that it will be one of the worst places to live on. I do not know Chinese Mandarin. Has it stopped Ashok Nanjunda Rao or Dr. Muthulakshmi from bestowing this endowment oration on me? Just because I didn't know Chinese? Have you stopped? Have you disregarded me? We do not know so many things. Everybody doesn't have to be a superwoman. And today's parents think that every child has to be, whatever. That puts in a lot of unnecessary jealousy. Spiritual wellness is lost. Emotional wellness is lost. Did your father not scold you? Did your mother not scold you? Were you resorting to all kinds of rubbish that today's younger generation is trying to do? Where is gone? Where is the emotional strength gone? Don't we have the duty of bringing back this emotional strength? Life is full of ups and downs. Face them. So the first step or step one or factor one will be, please inculcate small little habits like sitting down on the floor, walking a few steps, and inculcate these as part of everyday life. Part of everyday life. Not as labeled gymnasium exercises, but then as part of everyday life. Simpler changes in lifestyle. Changes internal, changes external. I'm really surprised that we live in a tropical country and today, I'm sorry madam, many of the prescriptions on vitamin D. This is a country which is a tropical country and many of our prescriptions point to a stature where we probably have altered the climate of the country. Why? Small little lifestyle changes that are required. Lifestyle changes are required everywhere. Everywhere. If there are experts here, if there are consultants here, please take note. It is high time we change our construction material. It is high time we think of every aspect of human life. Today, I'm sorry if there are any orthopedicians here, but fact is a fact. Today, several of the orthopedic related illnesses have increased and your floor does not have any elastic recoil. I'm fond of narrating something that happened a few years ago. Some of you might have heard it. Does not matter, good things can be repeated. We had to construct an animal house at Madras Medical College. The old animal house, which was housed near the Red Fort, had to be demolished and a new one had to be constructed in the new campus. The animal house was constructed according to modern day standards, where the then vice principal of Madras Medical College, which was poor me, had to have a fight with the civil experts because they told me that I was not an engineer and I am not supposed to know, or I am not likely to know modern construction material. 15 days into a vitrified tiled floor. 15 days. Vitrified tiled floor. All the sheep developed bow legs. And the flooring of the animal house had to be broken, replaced with cement flooring. There is no elastic recoil. Do you remember that when we were children, we just walked from the water tap and did this to our hands, which was full of water drops, and what happened to those water drops? Next few minutes they were gone. Today, do we dare do it? In our modern homes, homes which have all kinds of marble and granite and all that, and why have orthopedic and archaeological problems increased? Are we not contributing to diseases? Are we not contributing to illnesses? Instead of actively pursuing health, we are contributing without our own knowledge. None of our walls are breathing today. Our walls are not breathing. They are made up of so much of concrete. And Dr. Bala knows how we refurbished the old anatomy Red Fort with all the older material, not a single millimeter or single milliliter of concrete used. The walls were breathing. Today we have construction material where the walls are not breathing. So it is necessary that we think of all this, our shoes, our chairs, the way we sit, the way our chairs are designed, the way the footwear is designed. All these need to be re-looked, and that will contribute to our lifestyle change. I remember about 30 years ago, the first time I heard of this, the couch potato syndrome. When the televisions came up and people were just looking at the television and gobbling packs and packs of fried chips, they all became couch potatoes. And subsequently came the time when people talked about mouse potato syndrome. People were all sitting down and only handling the mouse. I remember mouse came into the city of Madras only around 1992-93, because this university was the first one to procure a mouse and then use it when we did the AIDS project here. And mouse potato, because people were all sitting there and doing this, and they were all becoming potatoes, but then the reason for becoming potatoes was that the mouse was responsible. And today we have all other syndromes coming in, whatever new names that are coming with all formatitis of all the social media, so different syndromes coming in. We are adding to the vocabulary of newer diseases, but our lifestyle is going for a toss. Now please rethink, we need to think of changing some of our lifestyle activities. And the third thing, and the final thing is, we need to have harmony with our environment, with the animals around, and that is what Dr. Srinivasan would tell me is the One Health triad. If there is no health of the animals, health of the human beings will suffer. And any number of brucellosis, zoonotic disease projects, you can write all proposals you can write, because diseases will keep jumping from animals to human beings. Unless the animals are maintained healthy, human beings are not going to be healthy. Unless our plants are maintained healthy, human beings are not going to be healthy, which means we need to concentrate on our environment, be it the plant or the animals or whatever. And this is a country which always thought of the animals around, creatures around. This is a country which said, feed the crow in the morning and feed the dogs in the night. Primarily because they wanted the human beings to live well, and that is why they said the animals to live well around. Our responsibility is to think of the environment. So friends, just before I conclude, there are 3 things that each one of us will have to put in our thoughts about. Inculcating simpler habits into our day-to-day activities. Inculcating lifestyle changes. Rethinking the way we live. Rethinking the way we buy things. Rethinking the way we travel. Rethinking the way we construct our dwelling places. And third, think of the environment. Think that you and me have the responsibility to keep the environment sanctified. If not, ஊர்ல ஒரு பழமொழி சொல்லுவாங்க, சுவர் இருந்தா தானே சித்திரம். சுவரே கீழே விழுந்தா, environment கீழே போனா, நாம் கூட சேர்ந்து தான் போவோம். Why have we had so many earthquakes? Why have we had so many tsunamis? Why have we had all those calamities coming in? I do not know. Jayanti madam will have to tell me. There could be some newer virus waiting somewhere near the doorstep, trying to enter. If we need to prevent all this, it is essential, it is mandatory that we inculcate some of these small little things. Small little things of sitting on the floor, small little things of caring for the environment, small little things of having those small plants, a tulasi plant or a karpuravalli plant, which will also indicate to you if your air is pure or not. These small little activities will go a long way. And true to what Professor Nanjunda Rao would say, I would repeat what he once told. Of course, what he told us that day was something that he quoted from Swami Vivekananda. There was a boy of about 17 or 18 standing at the side of the road and then complaining, the road is very long, I have to walk such a distance. And then Vivekananda told him, come here, pulled him. The boy walked into the road, walked onto the road, and Vivekananda showed him, where is the road now? The road is at your feet. The road which was pretty long is now at your feet. Health and wellness, the way forward appears to be pretty long, but you and me step onto the road. Please remember, the road will be at our feet. Pranams to my Guru and pranams to all those doyens who were there, Professor R. Sarachandra, Professor Raghavashyam, Professor Madana Gopalan, and if the name Vittal is synonymous with Sarachandra, if the names of Ratna Sabhapati and Jnana Prakasam are synonymous with Raghavashyam, the name Gunasagaram is synonymous with R&R. How can we ever think of R&R without thinking about Gunasagaram? Thank you very much.